Hello, everybody, and welcome to the webinar on best security practices, or as I like to say it, how to stop the con artist. My name's Tom Kirkham. I'm CEO of Kirkham.IT, and I'm doing this on behalf of Kirkham.IT. We are a managed service provider that also specializes in security. So let's get started. A few things before we get started. There's some really useful information in this webinar. So I'd appreciate it if you would turn off your phone. Try not to multitask because there really is some very useful information in this. In fact, it's some of the things that we cover in our client training. Everyone's going to be muted during the webinar, but if you've got any questions, just use the chat box on a PC or a laptop. It's on the right-hand side. If you're on a phone or an iPad, it may be somewhere else, but just take a moment to find the chat box because of you might just got a message that I don't have any audio. Let me see if I can fix that real quick. All right. Can somebody go in the chat box and tell me if they can hear me now? I'll take my headset off. Hopefully the echo in the room is not too bad. All right. Thank you, Chris. Looks like it looks like everything's going ahead. Okay, Daniel. Apparently, I think that may be on your side. So see if you've got your. Yeah, there we go. Okay, good deal. All right. Well, thank you. See, where was I? Okay, so looks like many of you have. You found the chat box, so just say hi, tell me where you're from. We've got people from all over the world here, so it's really nice just to sometimes just broaden your horizon, see who's here from outside the United States. If you have any questions, go ahead and drop them in there. Just keep in mind that I'm running about 30 to 45 seconds ahead of what you guys are seeing and hearing, so chances are I will spool all these up and answer them at the end of the show. And of course, take a note of this. My email is tom@Kirkham.IT, and I'd be happy to take any questions, any concerns, any issues, any suggestions for improving the webinar. I'd love to hear them. So any feedback is welcome. So what are we going to do today? Well, we're going to talk about how big of a problem security actually is. We're going to talk about the business of hacking. We're going to talk about who are these hackers and why and what are they doing. The big deal on this, and where you're going to get a lot of education on, is how social engineering, or when you're not in the IT world, it's a con job, can weaken and defeat even the best security. I'm going to show some real life examples of these. These are actual examples that I harvested out of one of our security filters and went ahead and went through the motions. I'm going to talk about a couple of instances that has actually occurred to me very recently. And the scams and the number of techniques and everything they use is just fascinating to me. And it's fascinating to Kirkham.IT. And that gives us a great deal of awareness. We're all passionate about stopping these things, but at the same time, we're curious about how they go about it. So it's kind of one of those things like all attorneys know how to bribe a jury, but they don't do it, right? So the more you can use your imagination to say, well, what if I were able to do this? How would I go about it? The easier it is for us to stop those types of things and plug holes and things like that. And that's what we do. That's what Kirkham.IT does. We are very security responsive, very security aware, and we've got some great solutions to help you guys out. So let's talk about the business of hacking. This is, it never ceases to amaze me how the average person doesn't realize how big this business is. 95% of the hacks, the things that you hear about on CNN and the other things that you never hear about, are due to end user manipulation or scamming the end user. 80% of these attacks occur to small businesses. These aren't These hackers are doing this at such a scale that they don't care if you're Ford Motor Company or Facebook or Equifax. They make just as much money. In fact, they actually make more money by attacking small businesses. So it's not just the ones you hear of on the news. This is a multi-billion-dollar business that can, this next bullet point's a little old, but when I created the show, there was one that had, it was documented because you can look at Bitcoin transactions and see. But one hacker got $60,000 in Bitcoin in a single week. So imagine him running that for 4 weeks or 8 weeks or for 4 months, how much money we're talking about just for one single hacker. The thing about ransomware, and that's tied into the Bitcoin deal, and that's just one of the things that they do. But in the case of ransomware, where they actually hold your data hostage, these guys are very concerned with making sure they provide good customer service. And we'll talk about that in an upcoming slide. But just like any other good, big business at scale, customer service is very, very important. And to give you an idea of how big of a problem this is, almost 2 million hacks are attempted every single day. It's something like 20 or 30 a second. So make no mistake, not only is this serious, it's happening every second of every single day, but behind it is well-organized international crime at scale. Remember that at scale part. So who are these people? Nation states, North Korea, Russia, China. These are the main players. Now, primarily, the nation state actors are looking to steal corporate secrets. So like patents and insider knowledge that they can share with their own, companies inside their own country, such in the case of China and Russia and even North Korea. But lately, we've seen indications that North Korea may also be playing in the cryptoware or the ransomware attacks as well, presumably to drive revenue into the country. Some of these are social activists. So if you're part of an organization that gets the wrath of certain groups of people, the social activist organizations such as Anonymous will they'll do targeted attacks such as DDoS or denial of service attacks on these organizations. They do other things to just basically create chaos, to shut them down. And these are based upon their social reason for doing so. These are social activists. What we are mostly concerned about is the organized crime organizations. And these are individuals and businesses that do it for direct profit. They're putting money in their pocket. So think about these things. These are multiple specialized line of businesses, okay? Now, what I mean by that is these are vertical businesses. Some of them specialize in just the software toolkits that allow the buyer to customize a ransomware virus to their own needs. So for example, they will buy one of these toolkits from one of these organizations. They can go through and say, I want my initial ransom to be $300. I want it to go up 100% every 24 hours. And at the end of 5 days, I want all the files to be lost. And I want the pop-up screen to display this information. And they run through this wizard. It creates the deployment object, and then they're free to use it and distribute it as they see fit. And one of the ways they distribute it is through list providers. These list providers, separate organization. Keep that in mind. These are separate line of business organizations. These list providers, they'll sell maybe credit card, a list of credit card, a cleaned credit card list of my credit card numbers, expiration dates, maybe the security codes, and my name, possibly even the billing address. And these are cleaned. They've actually tested these cards just to verify that they are good. They may be just selling identities. So they sell it to somebody that's wanting to do identity theft. And sometimes these targets on these lists are even ranked by reputation. So are these do these people, is each individual on this list also show up on other lists? Are they credit worthy? Do they have a high credit score? I mean, there's just any number of ways to do that. And once again, it's about providing good customer service. So they're saying, okay, I'm guaranteeing you these credit card numbers work with a 98% success rate. I'm guaranteed these particular targets have a certain FICO score. So when you buy these lists, your scam will be directed depending on the rankings of who's on the list. Some of these guys do nothing but database hack, and they may use social engineering, sure, to gain access to a system, but they deploy a number of techniques. So these will typically go out and do direct targeted attacks against, say, an Equifax. So they're probing the vulnerabilities in any server that's public facing. They will deploy social engineering tactics. They may do walk-in social engineering tactics to get physical access. There's many number of ways that they can do that. But interestingly, they don't use the list typically. They will only want to sell the list to others to exploit and to scam. So they are providing a service, and that's their business. Their business is to hack, gain the database, and then to in turn and sell the database. Some of these guys do nothing but denial of service attacks. So I could go out and hire a company to do nothing but do a denial of service attack on the Kirkham.IT website or the Kirkham.IT mail server, or maybe a competitor. That's all they do. So they build up a plan and a process, and they execute it and get the other half of their money or whatever the deal provides for. Some of these companies do nothing but provide call centers to initiate call-out scams. Others run command and control systems. So one of the slides that we'll talk about is you allow somebody through a scam to gain control of your computer. There's an entire call center of people that are sitting there and doing that. And if you've listened to these people, you can hear them in the background, just like any other telemarketing service that you've had calls from. So make no mistake, these are done at scale. They are highly efficient, and they adapt all the time because we get accustomed to the scams, we get familiar with it, and we know it is, and we hang the phone up, or we close the browser, or we simply don't respond, or pay the ransom, or wherever it is. But these are huge, huge organizations with thousands of individuals around the world doing these very things. So what we're concerned with today, since it's 95% of what's the successful hacks right now, is social engineering exploits, or like I call them, con jobs. That's what they are. So what a social engineering exploit is, it's rather than a direct attack, such as trying to penetrate a firewall or get beyond security schemes, social engineering is a way to perform a confidence scheme, or a con, in that they are manipulating someone to perform a certain action. And typically that's to gain access to the system, or to allow the hackers to gain access to the system. And it can be done without the user's knowledge. The user may not even know they've been conned. They may not even know they've granted access. Other times that we'll see, they are wanting the user to make phone calls in. Sometimes they actually just receive a phone call and it doesn't even go through a computer at first. But many of these are just reworks of scams that have been around for hundreds of years. If you've been to New Orleans, Louisiana, United States, the very, very common scam, it's been there for decades, all my life. And there's actually signs posted now. But one of the scams is, I'll tell you where you got them shoes. And, they work you over and for $20, I'll tell you where you got them shoes. And you can't, there's no way they know where I got these shoes. I got these shoes in Hawaii, the shoes that I'm wearing right now. How would they know that? I'm in New Orleans. I'm not even from here. They don't know me, anything like that. But it's a scam, and you can go read up on it. But with that Wikipedia list of scams that I've got there, they use those scams as well as others to go and use them. These are successful things that have been used for hundreds of years, and they go in and apply them and adapt them to our computer world, our life. And what's fascinating to me is everyone knows that if you're on a dark street in a big city, to be wary of scams. Some cities are known for scamming by far more than other cities. So New Orleans and Istanbul and other places, you just expect it and you're on guard for it. it fascinates me how people let their guard down on the internet. And ever since the invention of the World Wide Web, these scams have been around one way or another. So that's what we're here to do, and that's what we're going to talk about. Now, how does this social engineering defeat security? Because most people say, well, I don't have to worry about it. I've got an antivirus, or my company has got a great IT team, and they do all this other magical stuff. And sometimes, quite frankly, it's a pain in my rear end because I can't get my work done. You know, I got to get out this thing on my phone, or I've got this token, I've got to get a multi-factor thingamaduchy, or, you know, I can't have somebody send me a file attachment. Well, let me tell you, they are putting these things in place to protect you. But when they're social engineering you, the thing you have to remember is the computer assumes the user is in command. By default, a computer assumes the user is the commander. You are commanding and controlling the computer to do your wishes. So by its very nature, you obey the commander. So by using social engineering techniques, if you want to open a PDF document, the computer has to assume that it's safe because you're the commander. It is merely obeying your commands. Sometimes they are using just calling a phone number. And in turn, you actually give up control of the computer by going to a website. And you say, okay, I accept this, and somebody gets on your computer from halfway around the world. An interesting one is inserting a flash drive. Your company may have a security policy in place that you can't put a flash drive in your computer. That's actually a good policy. It does make things difficult for you to get your work done. But understand that if you remember the story about the centrifuges that were actually reprogrammed to spin, I think it was to spin too fast and overheat and cause permanent damages in Iraq when they were doing their nuclear program there. That's how they distributed this in. These were this was an air gap network, and an air gap network is a computer system or a network of computers that is not connected to the internet in any shape, form, or fashion, has never been connected to the internet. How do you introduce a virus into that environment? Well, simplest way is to have somebody carry it in for you. So distributing flash drives in the parking lot, all it takes is one person to be curious, get out of their car, walk into the office, plug it in, and see what's on the flash drive, and bam, the virus is on the internal network that was supposedly protected from any kind of intrusions and things like that. And they have all other kinds of protections, like a dead man room and iris scanning and things like you see in a typical data center. But all it takes is somebody to walk in with a flash drive and defeat even the best security systems. A couple of other ways that can be done is the calling the user scam. I had this one the other day that actually called me up on the phone. They got my voicemail. They left a message, hey, your annual computer security program is going to renew for $499 unless you call us and cancel. Well, I already knew I didn't have one. Kind of do my own thing. Guess that's pretty obvious. But I called them. And so I'm skeptical. In these days, I've gotten to the point where I don't really want to play along too much. I just want to get an idea of it. I said, well, I'm not sharing any personal information. The lady on the other end of the phone says, so I'm not going to ask you for any personal information. I just need you to go to this website. Aha, I'm intrigued. So I type in the website. I go to it on my computer. And she says, do you see the website? Click on this button. It was actually a go to my PC live session with someone on the other end. And they had configured the page in such a manner to kind of disguise it, but they couldn't do it all, especially the URL at the top. And I noticed that it was a go to my PC. So if I had clicked that button, they would have immediately had access to my computer and to do whatever they wanted to do. So that's a way they can do it without even starting with the computer. Excuse me just one second. And another way it can be done is using unsecured networks or pineapples. Now with a pineapple, this is kind of a hacker term for a illegitimate hotspot Wi-Fi, right? So you go into McDonald's or Hilton Hotels or wherever your hotspot is, and you go, oh, well, here's Starbucks. I see it in my little Wi-Fi list. I will connect to it. Starbucks number 132. Yeah, I've been here before. I always see Starbucks 132. So I just connect to it. Well, if I have a pineapple or a Wi-Fi hotspot and I name it Starbucks 132, you cannot distinguish that from the legitimate one. So if you connect to my particular hotspot, everything goes through my computer, and unless you're using a VPN or you're on an SSL site or you somehow are encrypting your data, I have access to every single thing on your screen. I have access to every single thing that you type in. So even though that password is masked, I've got it in the raw form, and I can actually get your credentials that way. So the long and the short of this, anytime you're in a public Wi-Fi spot, make sure that you use a virtual private network or a VPN connection. So let's get into some of the meat of this. Here is an anatomy of a really good phishing attempt that was sent to me. I flushed it out of our spam filtering that, we literally catch thousands of these a day. But I flushed it out just to take a look at it. So at the top, I don't know if you can really see it real well because there's a lot of information here, but notice it's from Email Team. Well, that's okay. The subject is new sign-on from an unknown Windows device. Anyone that travels internationally will get these from Outlook.com or maybe Gmail. Google is very good about security. And they'll send you a notice very similar to this. In fact, I think the subject line's identical. So in my mind, oh, well, maybe I am in a foreign country and, they just want to protect me and everything, so I better click on this and tell them it's okay. But let's stop 1 second and look at this. Notice that it says Email Team, but the real address is from an unrelated organization. It's a Kenyan email address. You can create an email that says you are anybody on the planet and send it to anybody on the planet. But the raw underlying email that you can find, and sometimes it's displayed and sometimes it's not, cannot be faked, usually. I think it can be hidden. But you need to look at that. Regardless of whether it's hidden or not, you need to scrutinize it. Now, notice in the email body, there's your email account, tom@kirkhamsystems.com, was used to sign in from an unknown Windows device, which may cause temporary account lock. To avoid, confirm activity below. Well, if I click on those two email addresses, the actual link goes to a different email address. It's a Gmail address. The next one down, confirm recent activity now. If I click on that link, it's going to take me to a website for me to type in my credentials. We're going to get that to the next slide. The other links are kind of odd, but they also go, I think, to the same email address, except for the very last one, which for some unknown reason goes to Google. And in my case, I know that we're using an exchange, our own private exchange server. So why does Google care, right? So these are things that you need to scrutinize. Always take a moment to make sure any email that you're looking at is legitimate, okay? No matter who it's from. Look at it for the behavior and the content and things like that, and we're going to get to that in a couple of more slides. So if I click through, this is where I go. At the very top, there's 5 icons there. This is a variation of a very old 5-card magic trick. So all I need to see is one of those icons that in my mind might lead me to verify this is a legitimate site. Oh, well, the one that's circled there, that's the Outlook icon. Oh, well, then that, yeah, I do need to do this. And mentally I'm going, okay, this is the site. And I just ignore the rest. Well, guess what? The others are mail server icons too. The first one on the left with the squirrel, that is an email server called Squirrel Mail. The one on the right, I can't remember what it is, and Chris, you may know, but it's another email service system. The other two, I don't have any idea. Presumably those are email server systems as well. So, but all it takes is the one to verify, right? In my mind, I'm gaining more confidence in this con job. So I'm just going to verify my activity. I'll punch in my my credentials. It'll take me to a page and say, yeah, that's me. I'm logging in from Nigeria or Thailand or wherever, and I'm done. Well, guess what? This is obviously not our email deal. If it was my Gmail account, there's probably things on here that would indicate that it's not Gmail. It could be Outlook. Now it does have the Outlook icon, but why am I looking at these other 4 icons? What does that mean? If I were to punch in those credentials, they've harvested my email credentials. Now, many of you may be thinking, what difference does it matter if they just have access to my email account? Well, first of all, protecting your privacy is important for a number of reasons. You do have something to hide. Every single person on this webinar has something to hide. Every single person in the world has something to hide, especially when it comes to computers. If someone has access to your email account, they typically have access to your bank accounts, your credit card accounts, any other system account, your Facebook account. They can go in and use the credentials to do a password reset on Facebook, or hopefully you're not using the same credentials across multiple sites. Our training programs will drill that out of your head. Highly recommend them. But once they gain these credentials, you won't know. They don't want to change your password to your email because that's going to set up a red flag. They just want to see your email and maybe do password resets for Chase, or do a password reset for or access your Facebook account. So that's the keys to the kingdom. They can get into your Chase wallet. They can flush your money. They can transfer money out of the country. They can do all these things. So scrutinize these phishing scams very carefully. Here's an example of a website pop-up. Notice the pop-up at the very top. The page at aeroscript.co says, which people just see that as gibberish, but the system detected a security error due to suspicious activity found on your computer. Contact certified systems, live technicians, blah, blah, blah. And then they throw in another nice little pop-up graphic that's got Microsoft Security Essentials at the top and the bottom. There's one at the bottom there underneath my video, if I'm overlaying there. 800 number to call. You've got a Windows virus warning, exclamation mark. Then they show you all the different viruses that's found. We found 4 viruses. Your personal and financial information is compromised. Take a deep breath. Stop. No reason to panic. If you were infected with something, you are already infected, okay? So let's just pause for a moment. Nothing is this urgent on a computer, an email or a website pop-up. So what do we know about this? Well, number one is nobody's monitoring your computers for infections. Even if you use Microsoft Security Essentials, you should know that these warnings and the legitimate things that Security Essentials intercept, this is not the way it goes about it. It shows a whole different pop-up. It's something that's running on your computer. It's not a pop-up from a website. So how does this particular scam work? You call the 800 number and you'll get a technician. He'll probably ask for remote control of your computer, and typically the victim will allow that, and they will run a command line script, do some really high-techy looking things and show it, and they're gaining confidence by demonstrating their prowess, if I could talk, I would say that correctly. But they're going to gain confidence that they're going, oh, wow, they're just running through a bunch of stuff here, and they know what they're doing. And finally, they'll open up your event log. And the event log is what tracks everything that's happening on your computer, all behind the scenes. It's used by technicians every single day to maintain and solve problems on computers. The thing about event logs, especially on Windows computers, is that there's always scary stuff in there to the average person. You can take a brand new computer out of a box with nothing installed. And I'm not talking about a computer purchased at Best Buy. I'm talking about a very, very clean computer purchased directly from Dell, even one that's been wiped. Even one that doesn't have that salesware crap that you get from computers, the big box retailers. And that's another topic for a whole different show. But even one that you've just wiped and reinstalled Windows, if you run it for any length of time, there are a bunch of scary looking errors in event logs. So they are guaranteed that they're going to show you something scary, even though your computer is probably perfectly clean. Here's where the scam comes in. We can fix this for you. It's $99. Give me your credit card and I'll go through and fix it. Well, long story short, there's nothing to fix. They go in and do some other stuff that still inspires you and increases your confidence that they're actually doing something. And maybe they do go in and clean up one of the event errors, and they'll show it to you, and you leave feeling all really good and everything. And I really think that I had a virus and they did a good job, and I'm glad they caught it, and I'm very happy with that. I kid you not, I have a friend of mine that I see periodically in my travels, and he's a computer neophyte. He has fallen victim for the scam, and unto this day, I have described to him the scam. I tell him how it works, and he still is not 100% sure that they did not really fix something. And he spent, I think it was $200. It might have been $300. They gain a great deal of confidence in these scams, and they really do want to do a good job because they don't want the victim to feel bad and to report them and things like that. Even though they're sitting back in an office building in Moscow or Beijing or whatever, they don't really have any risk of getting caught. But they still want to provide good customer service. Actually, if they actually find a virus, they'll probably clean that off too. But why do it this way when there's legitimate companies all around wherever you live, or you can do it yourself to clean these viruses off? So don't ever call the number. It's not worth your time. Now, here's one of a phishing. This is actually a ransomware attack. It's sent through email, and that's the way most of them are done these days. And this was a live one that was sent to me, or actually to sales at Kirkham.IT. But notice the from address. It's hmdocumentsend@kirkhamsystems.com. It's got an invoice number. Typically, these are something along the lines of, it's urgent that you take care of this or your services will be cut off, attached as an invoice, or we're going to send you to collections. Anything they can do to create a sense of urgency. So it's not just the thing to create confidence, but they also want you to make decisions quicker and quicker and quicker. That's an operating mark of a scam artist or a con artist. So how do I know, right? So scrutinize these. Some of you on this call are clients of ours. You know that if you get a notice similar to this, it's probably going to come from accounting at Kirkham.IT, even though we used to be known as Kirkham Systems. And that's a legitimate domain, but it's still going to come from accounting. Or maybe you spoke to someone about the bill and it's actually coming from an individual. Well, then it may be from them, but it's not from HM Documents Send, right? So that's uncharacteristic of Kirkham. I've dealt with Kirkham. I've never seen seen it come from this address. Let's look at the rest of it before I just blindly open this attachment up. Oh, wait a minute, that's a Word document. I have never known Kirkham.IT to send me a Word document. They're almost always PDFs if it's a single invoice. If we're going through research on a journal, it's probably going to be an Excel spreadsheet. And even then, it's not going to be from their generic account. It's probably going to be for an individual. That's suspicious. Maybe I better not do that. Let's look at the body of it. Customer number so-and-so. Well, that's not my customer number. The wording on this is weird. It says may need to install Microsoft Word. Well, they already know that I've got Word. Maybe their stuff does have generic boilerplate text, but the rest of this is just not characteristic. It doesn't feel like them. They can even put our icon on there. You can grab that off the email. You can grab it off this webinar, that email, that logo right there on the left-hand side. You can grab that and create an email from accounting at Kirkham.IT and develop your own deal. But now here's the interesting thing. That Word document, or it could be a PDF or an Excel spreadsheet, it could be many different types of files. That document's carrying a payload, and that payload is ransomware. And the way it works is if you open that document, there's no warning. The typical antivirus system will not trap it. Most other security systems will not trap the execution of ransomware. It takes a very sophisticated security solution to trap these executions. It'll go out and execute the ransomware. It will then look at all the files it can find. So first it searches the local computer, then it goes out on all the network shares. Oh, there's a file server, there's another load. I can encrypt everything on the file server, encrypt everything local. It begins that encryption process. Notice, you have no idea what's going on your computer, on the network right now. They don't want you to know. They don't want it to be stopped. So they're doing it behind the scenes. It has little to no impact on the performance of the computer, or at least not enough that you would think it was unusual. Computers just sometimes slow down. Maybe they're doing a virus scan, which is probably going to miss this. Most of them do. It's been executed by you, right? You opened up the Word document. The computer just assumes that it's okay to run all this other stuff. This particular payload actually uses Windows services to do the encryption. So Windows is looking at it like, oh, well, they're just running a Windows command. It's going through right now and encrypting all the files. And it may take an hour, it may take a few hours, it may take 3 or 4 days, depending on the volume and the size of the files and the types of the files and things like that. But it's doing this all behind the scenes while you're going home in the evening, while you're doing your daily work. Now, once it finishes, this is what you get. This is what pops up on your computer. And you are the payload carrier. If you see this on your computer, you are the one that started this whole thing. And it's too late. All the files it can find to encrypt have been encrypted. On the left, the payment will be raised on this date, and this was May 16th, 2017. So let's just, for the sake of argument, say the first, this was popped up on the 15th. So they're giving you 24 hours to pay $300. That's what it has down at the bottom. In 24 hours, it's going to be raised. It might be $600, might be $6,000. It's whatever they told the wizard, the software wizard that built the tool, how they wanted this to work. Remember, they bought this tool to build this virus from another company. Finally, right below that first box is your files will be lost on the 20th of May. That's 5 days, presumably, since this popped up. And so they could do this a number of different ways. They can give you 7 days, give you 3 days. But once this trigger hits, in 6 days, 23 hours and 59 minutes, all the files will be lost. Now, a lot of people have a tendency to say, well, how do I know? Well, first of all, they say, I'm not paying a ransom because I don't know that they're going to unencrypt my files. Maybe they're lost forever. Now, someone's probably already looked, and yeah, they have encrypted the files. You can't open them, and you get a weird error and things like that. And the extensions have changed, and there's telltale signs that they've been encrypted, and the big one is you can't open it. But how do you know they're going to unencrypt the files? Well, what's happened is, remember the customer service part. They have actually gone out, phoned home, verified they could talk to the de-encryption server, have the private key, and before they even started encrypting the files. So they already know how to decrypt them, and they're going to make sure they get decrypted, because if they don't provide good customer service, they're not going to stay in business. And this encryption thing has been going on for a few years now. So imagine if none of these criminals had ever decrypted your files after you paid the ransom. No one would pay the ransom, right? So if you're a kidnapper of human beings and you kill every single victim, how long do you think that business model is going to last? I'd say probably 2 victims and you're done. But if you want to keep kidnapping people and keep getting paid and establish a reputation that they are going to get this person back alive and well, you're going to make sure that happens. Same exact thing with ransomware. They are almost without exception going to decrypt your files if you pay the ransom. So it's good customer service, and it is business, it's criminal business at scale. So what do we do or don't do? Well, first of all, don't open email attachments from people you don't know, no matter how urgent it may be seen. Even if you know the person, even if it's Tom at Kirkham.IT, were you expecting an email from me? Is it normal, expected behavior? I send a lot of emails out for sales and marketing purposes, so maybe you weren't expecting it from me. So just take a moment to scrutinize it. Does it have a file attachment? That'd be weird. What's the body look like? Does it have poor grammar that, frankly, sometimes my stuff does? But it would be normal to you and expect misspelled words and maybe a little grammar mistake here and there from me. So yeah, is it normal or expected? Is it asking, is something very, very urgent, or is it just normal? So just scrutinize the whole body of the email, even if you know the person. In the case of pop-ups, nobody's monitoring your computer outside of your computer, antivirus, or maybe your IT staff. Microsoft is certainly not doing it. McAfee's not doing it. Symantec's not doing it. And they try different company logos and they try to impersonate different companies, but no one is out there monitoring billions of computers for virus infections. And they certainly are not going to provide a call desk to fix it. If you've just tried to contact Microsoft for support, you know that's impossible. So why would they even do that? If you see one of these pop-ups, even if you identify it as a scam, just take a moment, take a deep breath, and carefully scrutinize it before clicking on anything. Sometimes they'll do little tricks like the X, right? On Windows computers, you've got that X up in the upper right-hand corner. Sometimes they obfuscate that and just to confuse you. So don't click on anything. Carefully scrutinize the entire pop-up and see if there's a way that you're sure that you can close either the tab, the pop-up, and or the browser. Now, if those attempts are unsuccessful, if you're trying to get it and you can't get rid of it, just close the entire browser. You just have to accept the fact that you're going to lose all the open tabs and everything. Don't try to save them, just because we need to get the pop-ups off your computer. And then finally, if that doesn't work, just reboot the computer and see if that doesn't make it go away. You can get these pop-ups by going to legitimate websites. They've got threat vectors they can exploit on, and we don't see this too much anymore because these media companies, for example, have gotten much more sophisticated about protecting their website. But it wasn't that long ago, but weather.com was compromised. I think CNN.com was compromised, and some of these other very high-end legitimate websites were actually hosting these pop-up files that were creating the scam or allowing the scam to take place. And then finally, make sure your systems are multi-layered, or your security systems are multi-layered and robust, and enterprise level if you're a business. The consumer grade stuff you buy off the shelf or you buy online these days more commonly, these are really consumer grade things. And if all you've got is antivirus, frankly, you're not protected. You need all of those you need to take all that information you've already learned and please apply that in your daily life, because if all you've got is antivirus, you are not fully protected. All it takes is one slip up on opening a file attachment and your files will be encrypted, and you could lose 30 years, maybe 100 years of photos of your family. Even worse, you can lose data that your company has and compromise customer information and compromise vendor confidence and vendor information. So you certainly don't want to do that. You should be multi-layered. There are DNS filtering that's provided. I know that Uverse provides DNS filtering. And DNS filtering, I don't want to get too nerdy on this, but basically it's a way to monitor all the network requests that are coming out of your business or your house. And they maintain that against a blacklist of websites and IP addresses or destinations that are known to be malicious, bad actors. And they will block those things. So make sure you've got some sort of DNS filter, even through either through your ISP, or I think OpenDNS has a free version for home users. And if it's too technical for you to set up, just contact your friendly local IT guy, and they'd be happy to do that for you. It's very simple, and it's just a great way. These actually the website filtering is the most effective way to stop ransomware attacks right now. Unfortunately, the command and control center of the encryption machines themselves are now being distributed, and it's more of a peer-to-peer thing, and the command control is actually beginning to show up on the infected computer itself, so they don't even actually have to phone home anymore. So you've got to take this serious, and you've got to protect your business. So how does Kirkham.IT do this? And we've got multiple ways to do it, and we're just going to run through a few things. It's always a multi-layered approach. We are going to install enterprise-level endpoint antivirus, right? So we're not going to run McAfee Super Premium Deluxe for $49 a year. We're not going to run AVG Free Edition. We're not going to run Microsoft Security. We're going to run an enterprise-grade AV on all the computers that are under our management. Many of our clients are going to have a IDS or IPS system. They're going to have an intrusion detection and prevention system. This is a proactive way to intercepting malicious activities live and then stopping them. We're going to make sure that you're in compliance for whatever compliance organization you're beholden to. So if you're a retailer, typically you've got to do some sort of PCI. If you handle any kind of medical records, if you are a doctor or a dentist or a psychologist or anybody that's under the guidelines of HIPAA, you know those lines are very steep, and the days of the I'm sorry, it won't happen again, and I'm making plans to make sure it doesn't happen again, those are over with. You're going to get fined the very first time. And one of those things that you have to do if you get a breach being HIPAA compliant is you've got to notify everybody. Do you think that's going to cause an impact on your business? How do you think your suppliers are going to feel about that? If you supply your patient data to a vendor and you compromise your patient data, how do you think that vendor is going to feel about that? Is that going to jeopardize your relationship? Does that vendor provide the one thing that makes your company successful? Another thing that we do is the DNS protection. Like I mentioned, we don't use OpenDNS. We use a couple of other solutions, but you've got to have some sort of DNS protection. Another thing that we do is multi-factor authentication. Most commonly, it's used on remote access, such as RDP, or any kind of remote access thing where you can access your workstation remotely. But we also encourage and have our customers set up multi-factor authentication on any website that has it built in, and more websites have it. Facebook does it now. Gmail does it now. All of my banking activity goes through multi-factor. Everything that we do goes through everything that I can do, everything that our company does, all goes through multi-factor authentication. We deploy a SIEM, a security incident and event management system, so we can see these things that are happening behind the scenes. So we're looking at behavioral analysis. We're looking at interception of abnormalities. Now, a lot of people look at that and say, well, geez, you already said the event logs are just thousands and thousands of things in there. Well, these SIEM products actually have a smart way and use a form of AI to find the anomalies. In other words, they look at the behavior of specific applications and compare that to expected behaviors of that application. So we have a way of drilling through the noise and actually detecting and intercepting these abnormalities, which are almost always security events. We do training for our clients and every client every user in that business. And this is continuing education, right? So what we mean by that is our system will go out and remind everybody, hey, there's a new training system, there's some new scams out there, you need to get up to speed on them, and it checks it for registration, it checks it for attendance, and we provide their manager or the company owner or whoever their leader is the security specialist there that's in charge of this. We provide them with analytics that basically certifies that not only have they received training, but they're staying up to date as well, and it scores them accordingly. We also do dark web monitoring. You would absolutely be shocked, and I'm on these dark web lists. We'll check your domain, your company's domain, against what's available for sale on the dark web and see where it's been known to be used. And then we'll take steps to mitigate that and fix that. If you haven't changed your password in 5 years for your Gmail account and your Gmail address shows up on the dark web, yeah, you need to change your credentials, and you need to enable multi-factor authentication. And then finally, we've got patented tools that are only available in the products that we offer to roll back breaches, to roll back ransomware attacks. And we're not talking about restoring backups. We're talking about actually rolling it back as if nothing happened. And these are enterprise level tools. They're typically not affordable to small and medium sized businesses. So these are some of the tools that we use. We don't deploy all of these to just everybody, but these are just some of them that, and it depends, right? And it does depend on how big the company is. Like, we have clients that may have 2 workstations. We have other clients that have 200, but the 2 workstation may need and have to have the best of the best, the enterprise grade stuff, depending on what the nature of their business is, right? But then we have other users that only have 20 users. It's a small business. They don't really have too many compliance issues. Maybe they're just confident with the less expensive non-enterprise level stuff. All of these are good. I don't mean to say that they're not. And every one of our clients has a combination of these, of some of these. But they don't really have to worry too much about nation states, right? They don't have to worry about China trying to break in and get patents that they've created. Some of our other clients do. Or some of our other clients have clients of their own that they're managing millions and millions of dollars for. They have a different issue. They do need the best of the best of the best. They do need enterprise tools, and they can't afford them on their own. We provide these tools to those types of people. Regardless of who you are, what your size of business is, we will develop we will analyze your risk-reward ratio, do a risk analysis with you, and determine what is the best solution for your business. So let's go over this again. Remember, hacking is a huge business that's mostly organized crime in nation states that have the money, they've got the skills, and they use highly sophisticated human manipulation and multiple sophisticated threat vectors to compromise your systems. They're always developing novel and innovative ways, either through the retweaking of an existing scam or maybe another technological way to hack into your system. But they're socially engineering users to execute payloads and to help them penetrate networks each and every single day. And once again, 95% of these intrusions initially use human manipulation to penetrate the defenses. But once they've penetrated it, only a highly involved intrusion detection and prevention system can mitigate the attacks. Because once they get in, see, here's what happens sometimes. We know that there's been an intrusion and we've stopped that intrusion. But these days, it's not a one-trick pony. These days, these criminals that are executing the intrusion are executing multiple threat attack types. So they may couple the ransomware attack with a worm that gives them command and control of the server that is totally separate from getting and holding your data for ransom. So once you fix all that problem, your problems may not be over. They may just be beginning. They may just be beginning. And if they've done a rootkit or something like that on your server, they have access to do whatever they want. And since this is line of business criminal activity, they may gather up 100 of these servers, know who the company names are, and then in turn sell that list to somebody else to do more devious stuff and to more specialized, more focused, even more skilled hackers or criminals to nation states. So maybe the initial intrusion was done by a criminal organization, but they've planted something that they know they can sell for $10,000 to a nation state to get patents that they can share in their own country. So finally, I'm glad you're sticking with me. I hope you've learned a lot. But at Kirkham.IT, we're going to protect your company with proven state-of-the-art enterprise-level solutions. Even the stuff that's not the real expensive stuff does a terrific job of doing this. And we're going to use a multi-layered approach. One method is not all you need. You've got to do a lot of different things. We're also going to train you and your colleagues to intercept, identify, and understand the scams. And these scams occur offline or online. I've done webinar training sessions where I talk about gas pump skimmers. That's outside of our forte, right? Kirkham.IT doesn't really have anything to do with the security of the debit card. We don't have anything certainly to do with the gas pumps at Sam's. We're still going to educate your users on how to detect a gas pump skimmer because we are security specialists. In the unlikely event, and I'm not sure, there's no guarantees in this business, but I don't think that we've had a successful ransomware attack that our systems didn't intercept. I could be wrong about that, but believe me, we stop them each and every single day. We actually stop dozens a day for most of our clients. They never even know it, never ever see it. In fact, sometimes we don't even know. But when we go back and start looking through things, we discover, oh, wow, there was a payload there. But even if something does go wrong, we have solutions that can roll this back very easily, very quickly, and it is simply amazing how we can stop and get everything back to normal. And the main thing to remember is, you remember the vendor thing. 60% of small businesses go out of business in 6 months after a security breach. And so you may be thinking like, well, my clients or my patients or my customers, they understand you get hacked. The information wasn't that critical. It really wasn't that big of a deal. But now wait a minute. What if you have a vendor that sees this, and this particular vendor is your main vendor? It's like you get 90% of your product or 100% of your product from, and their data was somehow compromised, or your customer's data was somehow compromised, that in turn compromises them. Do you want to run the risk of a vendor shutting you off because of insufficient security systems? Think about that. It's not just your client confidence that you could be losing. You could be losing access to your vendor. And if you lose both your clients and your vendors, you are out of business. And that stat that I said was absolutely 100% true. 60% of companies that have a security breach will be out of business in 6 months. Keep that in mind. That's the end of the show. I really, really appreciate everybody for being here. If you're an existing client of ours, reach out to me or Matt, and we'd be happy to talk about developing a custom program for you. Or if you're interested in the continuing education, give us a call, reach out, send an email to Matt or me. Be happy to talk to you about it. If you want to evaluate the security systems we've put in place for you and make sure they're what you need, be happy to do that. If you're not a client of ours, get to know us. If you just want to have a sit-down lunch or just talk over a cup of coffee, give us a call. We'd love to just see what you got, see what you're doing. We may walk away and say, hey, you're doing everything perfect. That's fine with us. We just want to make sure that you're protected, and honestly, we think we do about the best you can get. So, hey, a cup of coffee is all it's going to cost you. That's fine too. Anyway, give us a call, 478-3032. That's area code 479. Out of the country, it's +1. That's the United States country code. Or fire off an email to Matt or I. If you got in late to the session, you should get an email that has a replay link in it. And that's it. Thanks for your time, and time's up. Gosh, I thought it was going to be 45 minutes, but it's a whole hour. Hope you enjoyed it. Give me feedback. I love to hear it. Goodbye.